A very warm welcome to you wherever you are watching us from. My name is Abdulrazak Ali and this is Dalsan TV English News, Somalia's top #1 TV station for news and updates. We have a lot lined up for you, but first let's have a look at some of our top stories. Somalia's humanitarian response plan for 2023 sees critical funding gap, UN OCHA says. 25,000 tons of Russian wheat aid arrive in flood-ravaged Somalia. Explosion injures 3 children with a live ordnance in Garowe. President Mahmoud appeals for humanitarian aid as death toll from floods nears 100. Welcome back to this edition of Dalsan TV English News. Now, despite the urgent requirement of over $2.6 billion to address the pressing needs of 6.6 million people, the plan is only 42% funded. Humanitarian actors have called for additional resources to meet the existing and emerging needs effectively. Our reporter Abdurrahman Yusuf has more.
Reeling from the devastating impact of 5 failed consecutive rainy seasons, Somalia is facing another climate shock. The Horn of Africa country is experiencing heavy downpours and floods linked to the El Nino weather phenomenon, killing dozens of people and causing large-scale displacement. The rains have destroyed bridges and inundated residential areas, according to the country's National Disaster Management Agency senior advisor Mukhtar.
All aware that the country is facing now an impatient catastrophe and climate-induced disasters, both the prolonged drought and the current floods that affected the majority of the country.
Nearly 100 flood fatality cases have been reported by the country's disaster agency, and over 1.2 million individuals displaced, livestock and crops destroyed too.
Pastoralists and the farmers counted the highest loss since the floods washed away almost 2,000 farmers and 800 sheep were drowning in the water up to now.
Authorities, communities and humanitarian actors have reached about 820,000 affected people with life-saving assistance, but needs are rapidly rising as floods expand across the country. Mr. George Conway, Deputy Special Representative of the Secretary General, Resident and Humanitarian Coordinator, thanked the federal government and other key partners for their timely response.
Leadership of the government at the federal level, from the Office of the Prime Minister, from SODMA, at the state level, from the offices of the presidents, as well as the state-level ministries of humanitarian affairs and disaster management, who have stepped up in their leadership of the response. I'm also very grateful to our community of partners, especially within the NGO community, largely by frontline local and national NGOs, as well as for the support from the business community and from communities themselves that have stepped up to support those most impacted by the emergency. As we speak right now, approximately 820,000 people are benefiting from some form of assistance. This is about 1/3 of the overall number of people affected, which is a good number of the affected, but far too low. And too many people right now are going without adequate assistance. Extensive efforts are underway to try to bring the response to the scale that's necessary, and the humanitarian community is determined to stand with the people of Somalia until we overcome this emergency.
The cry is yet to be fully funded. Humanitarian actors, Somalia, a nation that least contributes to global carbon emission, bears the brunt of the climate-induced shocks.
Meanwhile, on Thursday, a cargo loaded with 25 tons of wheat from Russia arrived in Mogadishu, bringing much-needed relief to a nation grappling with severe floods and the effects of El Nino. On Thursday, a cargo ship loaded with 25,000 tons of wheat from Russia arrived in Mogadishu, bringing much-needed relief to a nation grappling with severe floods and the effects of El Nino. The humanitarian aid marks a significant gesture from Russia towards Somalia in these challenging times. Somali Minister of Interior Ahmed Mualim Fiqi and Mikhail Aksevich, the Russian ambassador to Djibouti and Somalia, were present at the port to receive the shipment. During the handover ceremony, Golavonok highlighted the aid as a testimony to Russia's ongoing commitment to support Somalia.
Уважаемые превосходительства, дорогие гости,
So, Your Excellencies and distinguished guests,
я буду говорить на русском языке, чтобы напомнить дружественному сомалийскому народу о наших давних братских связях между Россией и Сомали.
I will speak Russian today just to remind our Somali friends, the Somali people, and recall them about our historic friendship ties between Russia and Somalia.
Для меня большая честь сегодня быть с вами в Могадишо и принимать участие в церемонии передачи российской гуманитарной помощи правительству Федеративной Республики Сомали.
So I'm very honored to be present with you today in Mogadishu for the handover ceremony of the Russian humanitarian aid to the federal government of Somalia.
Речь идет о поставке первой партии российской пшеницы 25 тысяч тонн для сомалийского народа.
So this is the first batch that has been delivered here in Somalia. 25,000 tons of Russian grain.
Expressing Somalia's gratitude, Minister Fiqi acknowledged the Russian government and President Vladimir Putin for their substantial support. Fiqi also spoke about the devastating effects of the floods in Somalia, mentioning the extensive damage to infrastructure, the displacement of nearly 1.1 million people, and the tragic loss of around 100 lives. He ensured that the aid would be quickly distributed to the most affected regions and districts. Earlier this month, Russia Agriculture Minister Dmitry Petrushev announced the departure of the grain shipment for Burkina Faso and Somalia. With the arrival of this shipment, Somalia became the first recipient of such aid, underlining the new initiative's effectiveness in providing timely assistance to the nations in need. Now, 3 children injured in an explosion on Wednesday near the West Station, Saldigaberi, in Garowe, according to police. 3 children were injured in an explosion caused by remnants of live ordnance on Wednesday near the West Station, Saldiga Galbed, in Garowe, according to Puntland police. The incident involved a 37mm caliber anti-aircraft gun known as 37 in Somalia, which fires highly explosive projectiles. The wounded children are currently receiving treatment at Garowe Hospital, with some facing severe injuries. Following the incident, Nugal Region's Mine Sweeping Department has initiated a detailed investigation. According to reports, the site of the explosion has been where the Puntland forces and opposition loyalists clashed in June. Elsewhere, the federal government of Somalia's president, Dr. Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, has said 96 people have lost their lives due to floods caused by the ongoing El Nino rains pounding various parts of the country. The federal government of Somalia, Dr. Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, has said that 96 people have lost their lives due to floods caused by ongoing El Nino rains pounding various parts of the country. In a televised address to the country Wednesday, President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud said 1 million people have been displaced by the floods, which has also destroyed 140,000 households and swept away property, including 4,000 livestock in various regions of the country. Mr. Mohamud said the floods has destroyed infrastructure facilities, including bridges, especially in Burduba and Bardere cities, and appealed for humanitarian and aid from both national and international organizations to help the millions of the people affected by the floods across the country. He stated that the floods were due to heavy rains that have been experienced across the country, which is recovering from several years of drought, adding that the government had formed a special committee to coordinate the relief efforts and is working hard to reach the victims who need shelter, food and medicine. He further thanked the countries and organizations that have already responded to the crisis and expressed his hope that more help will arrive in due course. That's all we have prepared for you here on Dalsan TV English News. My name is Abdurazak Ali. I wish you a lovely evening.